just with the craziness of my 2024.
Technology makes it easier and also makes it harder. Yeah.
My parents owned a martial arts school since like the probably mid 80s.
Okay.
I think they opened it. So I grew up just doing Hapkido and Tangsudo and Kabuto are the three main styles.
I worked for my dad briefly, and then he worked for me.
She was really at the heart and soul of the business. So
I wonder in the future when I'm going to wish I was able to sit here and have a 3-hour conversation about karate business with my dad.
So my dad passed this last year. And my dad always has to go back to like the 1970s and 80s martial arts generation.
Yeah.
That stuff would never work. Like,
Welcome to Ready, Set, Rise, the ultimate podcast made for martial artists, by martial artists, with your hosts, Aaron Hensley and Cameron Smith.
Hey guys, welcome to Ready, Set, Rise. I'm joined with superstar martial artist, business entrepreneur, Adam Kifer. Adam, first of all, thank you for being here. I'm excited to just get to know you a little bit better here. And I'm going to jump right into it. Relentless is your company. It's
Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's shifting a little bit now. I see you kind of maybe, is it a rebrand, retooling? Kind of give me an update of where that's at.
yeah, agency is still Relentless Media Agency.
Okay.
We shifted the mastermind to Impact Mastermind. Just with the craziness of my 2024, I was like,
That's everybody's
I need to go
2024.
back to
Everybody's.
Yeah, I was like, I need to go back to the core of like why I got into martial arts to begin with, which was to make an impact on other people and to bring them the same benefits I got. Now we're just doing it more from the business side.
So is Impact more of the business coaching? That's kind of what that is there. All right, sweet, awesome. Well, I'm going to rewind from there now. Let's go back to your start in martial arts. I know a little bit, but I want to kind of give me some baseline where you started and how your family's involved and where you got started there.
Yeah, so my parents owned a martial arts school since like the probably mid 80s.
Okay.
I think they opened it, or maybe early 80s. But I started when I was 3. And started off as a rope belt because that was a thing back in the day.
Now, did you start, or do you have an option, or is it like you're doing this?
Well, I was pretty much living at the school
Right.
anyway, so I was always
Awesome.
off to the side, just like trying to do spin kicks and stuff and falling on my face. But yeah, so I started into it with them. Obviously, I was super uncoordinated. I was like a chubby kid with a bowl cut, which those things together don't make you very popular either.
It was the 80s though. It's okay.
Yeah, true. So I grew up just doing Hapkido and Tangsudo and Kabuto are the three main styles. And then when I got to be a teenager, I started getting into sport karate after seeing Mike Chat at the AK Grand Nationals. I was like, what is that?
Right.
I was like, that makes me want to do that more.
Yeah.
And I got really into like competitive forms and stuff. And then, yeah, but still training to this day. There's now more like Muay Thai, MMA, kickboxing stuff.
And now, does your parents still have a school?
No, my dad retired, 2003, I think, or 2004. And then I went and managed my brother's school for 3 or 4 years. And I got hired by Prella to go out to New York for a couple of years.
Okay. So we have a similar journey. I got started when I was 2.5, 3 years old. And grew up in a karate school as well too, so I understand that. So I'm curious about the family dynamic then. All right.
Oh yeah.
So I worked for my dad briefly, and then he worked for me. And then I have my sister who's in the industry as well too as a manufacturer. So give me kind of the insight of the family dynamic, the good, bad, and ugly, kind of how that worked. And I'm sure it's got all different stories that can go any direction there with that. But I'm curious about your perspective.
Yeah, my mom was like the sort of the program director
Okay.
of the business. She was really at the heart and soul of the business. So like she was the one that kept stuff running, making sure we're hitting like revenue goals, all that stuff. My dad was more of the instructor, but sort of stepping back and letting my older brother is 8 years older than me, so he was filling that role. It was crazy, like because like work would always come home with the family. My parents had the super smart idea of doing staff meetings Mondays at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I'm sure your brain's working perfectly by that time, right?
Yeah, so everyone's just arguing and wanting to get out of there.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So my sister and I would say this. my sister and I are 3.5, 4 years apart, and for us, I was competing and winning and things like that, and then I was teaching very young. She was kind of doing martial arts because she kind of had to type thing, or like she wanted the social more than the martial arts. And so it kind of created this friction. And she was daddy's girl, which I have a son and daughter, so I kind of see that now from a parental standpoint. But I would say probably in the past 2-3 years, our relationship's gotten better as she's now an entrepreneur herself, and so she understands kind of the path I've been on. But there was a 20-year gap there where our relationship was kind of, not at odds, just not as good as it should be.
Sure.
And then my mom and dad and myself, I would say that my dad had a very successful school, and then obviously got me in my first school started and set up, and so every conversation was around that. And just this past Christmas, I went back home for Christmas, and my dad and everybody went to bed. It's 9:00 at night, and for the next 3 hours, guess what we talked about? And I was like, well, just about martial arts and we were even talking about current stuff, just business in general. And before I kind of would have tuned him out, but then here's what happened to me during that conversation: as I caught myself thinking this, I was like, I wonder in the future when I'm going to wish I was able to sit here and have a 3-hour conversation about karate business with my dad. And so I caught myself because I was kind of not tuning him out. I was just kind of like, the head nod type thing, because I don't want to prove my dad wrong.
Sure.
Because the conversation will go forever if that's the case. And but I caught myself and I was like, man, these will be the days that I wish I had more of. And so we sat there and we really just, talked about all kind of stuff in business, and of course, my dad brings your name up a lot of times too, because he sees your content's everywhere, which is awesome. It means you're doing a great job. But that's one of those things that I from periphery, I resonate with you. It's like, I know that you guys are a martial arts family, done it your whole life. And I'm like, I know how my world was growing up and dealing with the family. There's every vacation was around a karate event of some kind, everything,
100%. We go to EFC conventions was like our usual vacation, and they would have them in Orlando, so we'd like go to Disney World a couple days around that. And then what's interesting is, like you mentioned about the conversation with your dad. So my dad passed this last year, but one of the cool things is he came out to our grand opening for Move, flew out, like he was like, I'm not going to miss it, I want to be there for it. And then not this year's summit, the previous one though, he came out because he wanted to be at the summit. He just wanted to be there to support and like just sort of see what we're doing with the industry. And it was cool just because we got to have like the same conversations you were talking about of like, and my dad always has to go back to like the 1970s and 80s martial arts generation as well. But I look back at those conversations and I appreciate the hell out of them even more now.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then, and sorry about your father. When he came out to your event, or if he came out to the opening of the school, did, whether verbally or understood, because I know guys, fathers or sons, sometimes we don't communicate the right way we want to. Both ways, I've kind of experienced that. Like, how do you feel how he felt of what you've accomplished in the space of martial arts as as an entrepreneur, as a practitioner? Do you feel like proud probably is an easy word to use, but do you feel like that you've accomplished more than he ever set out to do, or was he trying to like, why you do so much? Where was he at with that kind of feeling when thought from what you've accomplished when he was out here the last few times with you?
So what's interesting is my relationship with him, pretty much up until maybe I was like 25. Like I was pretty much a mama's boy growing up because my dad was always at the school, and my dad had like very bad anger issues growing up. Like he wouldn't hit us or anything, but he was a wall puncher. Like when you get upset about stuff. So him and I did not have the greatest relationship for the longest time, and he was never like a dad that was like gonna tell me he was proud of me. Like he saw me doing like tricking and stuff, and he's like, that stuff would never work. He's like, break a board with it, then I'll believe it. And he like make me try and break boards with tricks and stuff. So that was sort of like our dynamic. And then later in life, he became a born again Christian, and it was almost like a different father at that point. And as soon as that happened, he was always like interested in what I was doing, tell me how proud he was of what we were doing and sort of how we were going about it. And so that was always consistent, and that was cool to hear because I didn't hear that for like the first like 25 years of my life. So it almost caught me off guard at first, but it was good to know that like when he passed, like he was proud of what we were doing and sort of the man I'd become.
You have kids as well too, right?
Yeah, I got 3 boys.
3 boys. How's your oldest, and what ages do you have?
They go 5, 7, 9.
5, 7. So also young. Or are they all in martial arts, or how do you approach that as the dad of a martial arts school owner?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've thought about that a lot. For them, they love doing it. Luckily, especially my middle one and my younger one, they always want to go in the backyard with mitts and like start
Right.
like doing martial arts. Or if I'm in the backyard, because we got like a little workout set up in the backyard, like they want to come out and do training too. My oldest, he's like so giftedly smart. Like I can't wait to get his IQ tested someday, because it's going to be through the roof. He's just so analytical about everything that he struggles a little bit more with the martial arts, just because
His mind
he
works a
tends
little
to
differently.
overthink, yeah. He's doing great with it, though. He's improved a lot since he started. But for them, I'm like, hey, my goal is I want you guys to get a black belt. Once you get a black belt, you guys, if you want to go do soccer, football, whatever, or be more invested in something else, like I'm cool with that. But I just know the benefits I got from training in martial arts, and like just the mental toughness that's developed in my own kids,
100%.
and how I've seen that transform over time has been really cool to see.
Yeah.
And like we do like sort of Muay Thai kickboxing mix, all stand-up stuff, and like we have boxing headgear so they can punch in the face and stuff with the boxing gloves, and like just watching them spar and they get hit in the face and there's like brush it off and keep going. I was like, man, at their age I was like probably crying
Right.
for getting hit in the face.
Yeah.
But it's been cool to see, and it actually like helps us to bond more too, because just those like sessions of us in the backyard training is I think something I hope they remember
For sure.
when they're my age.
For sure. So one of the things kind of when I was a kid, and maybe this is kind of with your father's relationship and you know, my dad with my sister was very affectionate with his love. With me, he wasn't. So I felt like I had to earn it by being good at martial arts. So I got good at martial arts, thinking that was the way my dad was gonna love me. Now, as a dad myself now, like I know my dad loved me, but his way of expressing it. And there's many times that I know my dad was proud of me and I know he loved me, but I wasn't mature enough to understand his way of communicating that, right? And I had Andy Elliott actually had a conversation with me off camera that it made me think about something from the same, what I knew to be logically true, but it just wasn't necessarily implementing. And so I'm that way with my daughter. I'm very affectionate. I tell her I love her every day, and like really like, you know, and daughters make it easier, I think. But my son, Jackson, I came into his life when he was 4 years old, and, you know, like his life's changed because I've been in it, and martial arts has been a massively beautiful thing for him. And I've been really hard with him, and I've made him kind of earn that. Not even intentionally. I think it's just like, you know, father to son type thing. And Jackson's gonna be 17 this year, and I just started the past few weeks. I'm like every day I hug him when I can. We live in different states right now, so that makes it a little challenging. But I tell him every day I love him, and he's not the best at communicating back because he's a teenage boy. But
Sure.
I feel like this is one of the things as a father that I know I intend I have to do better, and I don't want to wait too long in life to make that shift on how I communicate that, you know, and let him know that I'm proud of him, you know, because
Yeah.
those words are powerful, you know, words are powerful.
I think I was gonna say I think the toughest thing like for guys like us is we want to strive to be at such a level of success on the business side, and then it's like balancing that with like making sure that we're there for the kids, that we're having those moments, and also just like being present with them.
Yeah.
I know that's something that I still struggle with to this day, that I used to be way worse with, but
Right.
Just like when they're trying to show me something and I'm thinking and I'm in work mode in my brain,
Right.
being able to like switch that over and just be like,
That's
yeah,
hard.
show me what you drew, let me see it.
Yeah, that's
it,
hard
it
to
is
do.
it is and and I've gotten way better, but I used to have the guilt of like when I was with the kids I wasn't working, and when I was working I wasn't with the kids.
Yeah.
And it was just like no matter what I was doing, I just like felt that guilt as like especially a younger entrepreneur, which it's gotten better over the years.
Yeah.
But there's still those moments when you're like at the office late and you're just like, I gotta finish this, but I'm like, I know my kids are like having dinner with my wife together, and I'm like missing it. So it's a struggle.
Yeah, Adam, I've really struggled with that over the years, and I haven't figured it out perfectly. I think it's a work in progress. There was a time, actually, I probably for about 3 or 4 years, probably right after my daughter was born, I thought, because I wanted to be more present at home, I basically couldn't do one. I'm all or nothing mostly in my mindset, And so I stopped really working on my business for years to go focus on trying to be this, honestly, more of an image of the father that I thought I needed to be, more than the really version that I wanted to create. And I became depressed. I was present at home, but I also mentally wanted to be somewhere else. You know, it seems like I love both. So like fast forward a decade later, I mean, that's a work in progress. And this is actually, I mean, I think maybe a year ago you even made a post about that or something to that effect. Maybe it was longer ago. You know, just talking about the hustle culture type thing. And, you know, sometimes words can be semantics and things like that. But like, I do agree that it's tough when your mind is wired. You're talking about your oldest son, mind maybe is wired a little differently than your other two boys when it comes to learning things in the martial arts. I think as entrepreneurs, there's a reason why there's not a lot of Aaron Hensleys and Adam Kifers necessarily in our space of martial arts. And we try to help these guys get to that level or understand it. But when your mind's wired a certain way creatively and you want to push, you want to help, you know, and you still want the family and you want all, it is a tough balancing act. And technology makes it easier and also makes it harder, you know. I think that's. I think probably you and I will continue to try to belt up on that at some point. You know, you're working through that. I'm curious about. I know you've rebranded, as far as your martial arts school.
Yep.
And I'm curious about kind of the thought pattern behind that, the evolution of that, what the goals and targets are. I know you and I have had brief conversations about things from the former franchise I was a part of and how things like that worked, but I'm kind of curious of your, you know, the why behind it and then kind of where you see it going, and I'm kind of curious where it stands right now.
Yeah, so for this, we actually didn't rebrand. I was partners in another martial arts school, and there's sort of a bunch of drama that happened last year that I ended up just leaving that school and opening my own. Move actually was something that I had an idea to create. Probably in 2018, I started to think about, like, if I went back to being in a martial arts school, what would I want that to look like? And I feel like we're in phase 1 of it right now. There's some technology that we're building out this year that's going to help us get to phase 2. But for me, I wanted, especially being a dad, I would take my kids to like laser tag birthday parties or like trampoline parks or something like that, and I would watch them walk in and look around and just be like, whoa, this is awesome. And every time I saw that, I was like, why can't we get kids to have that same reaction when they walk into martial arts school? Like, what? Like, because kids just walk into martial arts school and I watch them and they just sort of like do one of these and that's it. So one of the initial things I want to do is like, let's make this really appeal to kids in the sense of kids love video games, kids love YouTube. Let's make it a video game inspired martial arts school. And let's make it look futuristic, so when they walk in, the kids are like, whoa. And we have partition glass between our lobby and the training floor, and you can't see in. So the cool thing is when a kid comes in for his first class and we open the doors for the first time, they step through and see the training floor. Immediately, they're like, whoa. Like almost every time. Right. And I'm like, that's a look that I wanted so bad. The second aspect of it, I grew up like you doing traditional martial arts, and I got to a certain point. I think it was the first time I did a jiu-jitsu class when I got like, I don't know, choked out like 9 times in a couple minutes. I was like, oh crap, a lot of that stuff I learned growing up isn't really that practical. And around that time I started getting into like Muay Thai training as well. And I was like, well, you know what? I want to have a school that like I can have my kids out there and I'm watching them and I know what they're learning. They're going to be able to use to protect themselves if they ever need to. Because I was watching my son when my oldest son started in Taekwondo at the other school that I was partnered in, and I remember watching his class, and I was just sitting there. I was going, "Man, I wish he was doing jiu-jitsu instead." And this is like my own school. Yeah. I'm saying this watching my kid.
Right.
So that made me want to make sure that hey, we're going to have a martial arts school that's more, like in my opinion, realistic for self-defense and like the more modernized stand-up striking, kickboxing type of stuff. And I go at the same time, like I watch our industry and everyone's like, why do we lose to soccer? Why do we lose to basketball? Why do we lose to football? You take any kid and you put them in one of those programs for a year, there's a physical transformation that happens. That kid doesn't look the same he did a year ago because of the amount of the conditioning and the amount of practicing and all of that. So with Move, one of our initial things that we wanted to make happen was athlete development. Like I want kids from the time they're white belt to the time they're black belt, to look more muscular, to look more athletic, to be faster, to be quicker, and not just be something that we say in our marketing, but something that is actually coming true through the program. And we sort of went away from like the normal 2-time per week mentality where, and I was totally against unlimited classes for the longest time, but with our culture, if we're preaching athlete development, we want them in there as much as they can get in there. I want them in there 3-4 days a week, so they're getting the repetition, they're getting the conditioning, and they're actually seeing that physical transformation. And that's what we've done with Move. And man, our black belt test we just had in October or September of last year, I was so darn proud of the final product. It was like, I just remember sitting there and I was like, man, this is exactly what we wanted. And those students, just so you know, were transfer students. So they didn't get it in a year. They'd been training at the other school I was partnered in before then. But it was sort of tying all that together. And then we created experience points the kids earn through doing character development missions, through their training in class. And then we changed what all the belts look like. They look like video game skins instead of the traditional martial arts belts. Instead of uniforms, we have jerseys that they wear, and just really tried to modernize it. And I wanted kids to be able to walk outside and not feel goofy, like wearing a martial arts uniform. Because I just remember as a kid, like we'd go to Taco Bell or something, like for lunch, and I'd be in my karate uniform and everyone's staring at me, and I was like, I feel like a goofball. So we wanted them to go out and just be able to walk around normal and not have all the weird looks coming at them, and feel a sense of pride with what they're wearing inside or outside the school.
So basically, you know, okay, I love how you explain this, because we're basically living parallel lives almost, in a sense. Because I'm coming back in the martial arts space, and what I've done, the same thing is like I looked at all the things I loved about what I had and what I didn't love, and like how do I get rid of some of the stuff. And I think as the end goal, we probably have some of the same end goals. We probably see some things a little differently how we want to do it. Because, for example, I do love the idea of the jerseys, and I love that. And also, I love the idea of a karate gi. And the reason why I personally do is because the imagery people typically have is like you have to meet people where they are. For me, it's like people think of karate, they think at least that, even if they hate it and don't want to wear it or whatever. And so I feel like, you know, like I went and actually visited a school 2 nights ago, and the person teaching is in joggers and a polo. And I'm not against that if that's what you want to do. But if I'm a dad thinking I'm taking my son to a karate program and they don't meet my expectations first, they might be the best teachers in the world. It might be the best program, but mentally, it's like if I go see a doctor or something like that, I expect a certain thing based on what I've been culturally trained into. So I think that obviously your environment, though, you created, is you're transforming the whole experience. So it's not just a karate school. It looks like karate school, but then you're wearing basketball clothes, right? It's like you transform the whole experience. And I haven't seen it in person yet, but just from what I've seen online, it does look like a freaking video game is what it looks like, you know. Have you gotten, like, just from the, you know, the people from the old world, anybody kind of push back or kind of, you know, what the hell are you doing, Adam, type thing?
So you know what's interesting? When we I remember when we were starting to formulate like the vision for Move maybe like 2.5 years ago, like just getting the details straightened out, and we just rented an Airbnb out for a weekend. We're doing a retreat, and I was talking to the team, and I go, here's how we're going to know that this thing is going to be successful. Whatever aspect of it other martial arts school owners are shit talking about, I go, that's just confirmation that
that's the part.
That piece of it is correct. Yeah, and I said it, I told them, I'm like, expect it to happen. We've had people like make comments about our belts and be like, oh, they're not a real martial arts program because they don't have traditional belt colors. I'm like, that's fine. We're not like your definition of a martial arts program. That's cool. Like, we're fine with that. That's really the thing we got the most crap about is that. But it's interesting. When we had the summit, we had a bunch of school owners come in and visit. We probably had like 40 different school owners stop in during the summit, and there's besides like the look of it and the feel of it and all of that, the two things that we got complimented on the most was the student quality. They're like, man, we watched your beginner class and they look like they could whoop like most like brown belts or black belts. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's what we want. Second thing was just the level of instruction. They were all impressed with the instructor team. And I'm like, so yeah, that's what matters more to me than following traditional belts and all that stuff. And there's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with traditional belts. There's nothing wrong with having a traditional martial arts school. It's just not my vision for what I want my martial arts school to be. And all of them can be successful. All of them can be great schools. But yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be more crap talking happening as we continue to expand and open up more locations.
Yeah, I think, the stuff like that used to bother me back in the day, but I'm like, you know what, a lot of times this projection is really what it is. People just are unhappy with their success or they can't figure out how to do it. And the reality is like a guy like you, a guy like me, like we would help them if they would allow us to. That's the thing is like a lot of them just, they become the martial arts hypocrite.
Yeah.
They're telling the kids, you got to be in good shape. They're telling these kids that you have to be open-minded and to learn new stuff, but they're closed off. They're out of shape. They haven't taken a martial arts class. Like it frustrates me. Talking about Blackwell test, how many people, like the test they put their kids through, they couldn't actually go do. Right? Like they couldn't pass their own tests. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like, why would you preach and teach something that you can't even go do yourself? It's just, I hate that, man. And I hate the image that puts on the industry as well too. So where do you see Move going? Like what's your, if everything goes perfect, like where would you see this thing going for you?
So our goal is to be like, well, it won't be that hard so far, I don't feel like, but we want to be like the martial arts franchise that sets the tone for the rest of the industry as far as just how we grow, keeping the quality along the way, and then eventually having a really successful exit that just opens up private equity's eyes to the martial arts industry. And we're going to we're going to do it by building out successful corporate stores first, and then go the franchise model route after that. But I want to make sure that we have a good handful of really successful corporate stores that show the model and show the profit margins that are there. And that'll just help us to sell franchises as well. But we're not going to make the same mistake that like I Love Kickboxing did and Premier to an extent. I felt like they all expanded too fast.
Agree.
Started, and there's a franchise, fitness franchise I've been consulting that I just stopped consulting with last year that did the same thing. They built out like one corporate model, sold 700 territories, and then couldn't get the corporate model to work. And then everyone else, all the other franchisees that bought it, were starting to get worried because they were like maxing out at $30,000 a month.
Right.
It's like,
right.
It was way too early, and this is a franchise that I think has a lot of potential, but it just, the model is wrong. So I think we're going to be very, very selective with who we bring on first as the initial franchisees. Yeah. We're probably going to do an area rep model, just because it's an easier to manage model. Orange Theory did that model with amazing success. So I've just been sort of studying what's working, what's not working in the franchise model, and just educating myself on that side as much as possible, and then taking a lot of what I learned about what not to do from working for a franchise for a couple years, and making sure that we don't end up making those same mistakes.
Yeah, it's some irony with the two franchises you mentioned in the space of martial arts and kind of how they've, did a lot of things wrong, and hurt a lot of people, honestly, hurt a lot of people. You definitely have a playbook of what not to do, for sure. And then there are some things that both of those companies did well, for sure. Obviously, they wouldn't have gotten to that level without that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think opportunity is great a lot of times, but I think the opportunity costs of growing too fast and not having the right kind of people involved, kills a brand. It kills a brand. So, I'm excited to watch that journey. So like fast forward 10 years in the future, do you have like in your mind a location size or footprint of the U.S. or where you want to be, or when do you see an exit, and like, what's the dream? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, so initial plan is a 10-year exit. We want to be at probably around like 500 to 700 locations across the country. I'm not worried about going international too much. Yeah, and we have a whole. So there's a model I want to build out too for how we get the staffing for that, because obviously the martial art instructor side is the hardest part of the staffing of that. But I think I have a plan that's pretty solid that I haven't seen done in our industry to help get the right people staffed in those locations. But yeah, 500 to 700 locations, exit in 10 years. The other thing too that I am not worried about doing is knowing when it's okay, when it's time for me to step down as the CEO and put someone with more experience in my place.
Sure.
Because I think that another reason we see a lot of franchises fail is the founder isn't necessarily the best CEO to get them to the end goal. And I'm sure there's going to come a time where I realize that, hey, like I got it this far, I should be damn proud of myself. Now let me get someone in here that can take it to the next level. And I can be a founder, I can be on the board, I can advise and those things. But I've already told our like leadership team, I'm like, hey, there's going to come a time when I'm not CEO anymore, and I think that's going to be what's best for the brand when we get to that point.
Yeah. And God will, it happen sooner rather than later, because that means that you've had all the success happening, right? So that, I mean, here's my thing is when you kind of give me this vision you're talking about, and of course there's a lot of stuff that's got to happen, and like we know it's hard work. Dude, I want this to happen for you, because like one, our martial arts space in general, like when schools close, it hurts the whole industry. When a franchise hurts people, it hurts people that aren't even in the space yet, right? So like, we need people to go do big things and do them right, and to set the example. Like, so, I mean, I'm 100% gonna be rooting for you, and like everybody's so worried about sharing ideas and concepts because they're like, well, that guy might go do it instead of me. The reality is, you could tell everybody right now on this podcast, like, every single thing you're gonna do, and 99.9% of people that are even skilled enough to do it can't do it because of it's gonna take a decade of work. It's gonna it's just. And you're going to be faced with things you don't even know yet. Like, you know it's coming. There's going to be challenges you can't predict. It's just, so I think too many people are worried about, like, oh man, I've got some special secret sauce. And the reality is the secret sauce is discipline and hard work, and like, and so this vision you're talking about, like, you know it's going to be challenging, but you've got your whole life wrapped around in this thing, man. So like, if anybody's going to pull it off, it's going to be a guy like you to be able to go figure that out. So it'll be awesome. So that's the martial arts space.
Appreciate
school,
that.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you've done, man. I remember one time. I don't even. Maybe it was AK. It was one of the tournaments you and I talked briefly. I don't know, 6 years ago or so. I don't know. Like I said, I guess we're in different parts of the country. So different parts of the country for our lives, and so. And I think I'm a little bit older maybe than you, and so, but it seems like we're on a lot of similar paths, and. I intend just for us to have a better relationship, because I know that it's going to take a lot of people like us to pull off some big dreams to impact the whole community of martial arts, for sure. What beyond
I'm excited about what you're building too.
Yeah. Besides the martial arts school part of it, that's move going on, and that's a big journey. Then you have your marketing, which, and by the way, let me ask this first. What do you feel like is your number one asset that you bring to, as just in the entrepreneurial space? Like, what is your skill that you feel is, special to you?
That's a good question. I think I think a lot of people would just say marketing, and I'm good at marketing. I love doing it. I love writing copy. I love coming up with new angles on how to market businesses. I think that part is awesome. What I think I'm really good at is, if I ask Kelly, my COO, she would probably give a better answer. But like emotional intelligence, I'm very good at not being stressed or showing stress. Like I get stressed, but I don't show it. I don't let it affect my decision making. And then at the same time, like I consider myself very good at problem solving also. Like I can look at a problem from 14 different angles, run it through a bunch of different filters, and usually come up with some solution that no one else in the room is thinking of. And I think that's helped me just to like grow over the years and get better. I'm usually the quietest one in a conference room, because I'm just sitting there listening.
Those are the
sort of analyzing and trying to hear all the angles. Yeah, it's funny. I learned it from being in New York because. Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Yeah, you're good. I got you. I think we're on a little delay with the internet or something. Apparently there's fires and everything's shutting down here in Vegas, apparently, or whatever. Yeah. So tell me. Go ahead. You're talking about I guess when you're in the franchise world, about being in the office.
Oh yeah, like so when I was at I Love Kickboxing, for example, I remember my first meeting there. They were talking about franchise training, and the franchisees and the managers weren't feeling like they're getting enough support. And I just watched like everyone just argue over shit. And it was my first meeting, so I was going to be quiet naturally. And it like got to the point where there's like a big blow up and all this stuff. And then I just sort of waited for the dust to settle. And then I was like, well, how about this? And then it ended up being like the idea that everyone went with, but it was just like, everyone was so focused on let me like give my 2 cents that they weren't hearing each other. And that was just sort of that moment where I was like, oh, like I need to be the last person to speak all the time. Like I just need to take everything in and see all the angles so that I can actually come at it logically. And that just sort of transferred over, I think, to every area of my life, just from being in those situations and learning that. Also, I'll give Michael Perella a lot of credit on that too. He was always good at advising me to be like, hey, like you be the last person to talk, be the person that's in the room and is the quietest person the entire time until you have something important to say. Because if you're the person that just talks all the time, half the shit you say is going to be dumb or ineffective, and no one's going to listen to you anyway. So I sort of took that and held on to that for life.
Well, let me ask you about him. I've only met him a few times. You know, where do you like? One, how was he as a leader inside the company? You know, and how would you rate him on that? And then also two, you know, where do you feel his biggest pitfall was on growing that, and kind of how he left the company there?
Yeah, so first let me just say I have like no bad blood with Michael or anything like that. I think I don't talk to him like very frequently and haven't talked to him in a while. But I don't want anyone to think there's like bad blood between him and I. But I would say the Michael that I worked with was a different Michael than maybe 3 years before I got there. Just obviously because Kelly also worked closely with Michael, and we've had a lot of conversations about our time at I Love Kickboxing, and a lot of times it's almost like we're talking about two different people, like the stories that she gets and the stories I get. He was the first year I was there, he wasn't really in the office at all. He like wasn't around much at all, and then that was right around the time all the lawsuits started happening as well. So a lot of his focus and energy just had to go into survival mode and
Right.
getting through those lawsuits. And I was fortunate enough to be like confident enough to step up and just like help out in the areas I knew he wasn't able to focus on while I was there. But I think he was just in survival mode the whole time I was there. So I don't think I got to see like the full like genius of the Michael that started I Love Kickboxing.
Right.
But he would have those moments where he would just like give me some solid advice. But there was also those moments that he was just really checked out because like the amount of mental stress that those situations put on you, which I don't blame him for that. I think he was just trying to keep his company afloat at that time.
Sure.
I would say like I did learn a lot of what not to do from watching him as well. And I don't know if it was like a situational thing or if he's normally like that, but his ego definitely got in the way of like a lot of I think decision making of the company at the time, and it's hard too because in all these masterminds I'm in, I see the same thing happen over and over again. When you get successful as fast as he did, and like to the level that he did, you're probably going to get some ego. And I think the other part is he had a lot of people around him that were friends and not looking out for his best interest. So they would never challenge him on things. It was just they would like yes Michael, and I think that just helped to maybe feed his ego a little bit, because the one thing that he would always say to me is he's like I want to bring this to you because you're the only one that challenges me on stuff. You're the only one that like, well, if I give an idea, you'll give me an alternate viewpoint. And I think he respected me because of that. But I think he had too many friends around him and too many people that were in it for themselves and not really there to push the company forward. And there were some really good people that worked at I Love Kickboxing. It was just there's like 3 or 4 people that just should never have had a job there, that just were there too long, and I think affected a lot of why it went the way it did at I Love Kickboxing, but also maybe sort of affected Michael and how he ran the business.
Well, I mean, you got a firsthand experience about, I mean, because that company did take off like crazy. I mean, it grew really, really, really fast. And so, you know, depending on, you know, where you are at that time in your life, like at least and maybe you didn't know it, but you're getting an education on, maybe how it should work, how it at least looks like, and what not to do. My experience is the person I was connected with in our space would use Michael as the example of what not to become, and then basically like.
Yeah, and I also like try and put myself in his shoes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a little delay. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
You're good.
I also try and put myself in his shoes because you got to think he went from martial arts school owner to getting a franchise that sold like 1,000 territories and had like 300 and some locations open. And there's a lot that you
like
learn probably through that process, but also it's like drinking from the fire hose. And like I'm like if I did that same thing, and that's sort of why I have the perspective of I know we'll get to a certain point where I'm not going to be the right CEO to get us to the next level, because I feel like that happened. And obviously I wasn't at Premier, so I wasn't in the inner workings. But I also wonder if Premier at some point, if a different CEO with experience in scaling like to that next level stepped in, if it maybe would have been different. But I saw that with Michael, and I was like, man, I just think
for sure.
Yeah, you know a lot better on that than I would.
Like I said, I think we live parallel lives. We've had a lot of similar experiences. I'd say from my perspective, what I like your takeaway is like, hey, let's not grow at this level because I've seen the bad parts. For me, I don't want to go the franchise route at all because it was such a bad experience for me, and because I've personally even dealt with people that were harmed by it. But I do have a similar, or I don't want to use the word but, and I have a similar kind of outline of what I want to do with the martial arts space, a different version of maybe what you're doing. But the cool thing is like, if we're on the same track in a lot of ways, like this thing 10 years from now could be massive for the space of martial arts. My intent here, here's transparent that I am planning on doing is I'm not going to let people use anything of mine branding wise or anything that we're doing that might be unique and look, there's not a lot of stuff that's new. It might be just new tools of using something, right? Like there's not a new way to throw a kick per se. There might be a new way to present it or whatever, package it, right? Like your school I come into, I'm still learning martial arts. It's just packaged new.
Your IP.
So my intent is, I'm not going to let people use what I'm doing, and I'll license it until I have a certain level of success in schools that I personally own. So I have 2 that are about to open right now currently. I'm doing multiple states intentionally because I don't want to sell to someone that, hey, this works here. Because there's certain items. I was reading Behind the Arches, a book about McDonald's, and they're talking about when they introduced the Egg McMuffin, that 2/3 of the country didn't even have English muffins in their grocery stores. And so they changed how all of America will have a breakfast item in their grocery store now that they didn't have before. So I don't want something to work, because I'm there, but then it doesn't work in another part of the country because I'm not there. When I do licensed schools, my intent for an exit is I'm going to be the exit for the mom and pop owners under my brand. I'll pick and choose the schools that I want to eventually purchase and become the majority owner of their location. Keep them as a minority owner. They're still an employee now. I'll be their exit for them. Add it to my bottom line, and then when I want to go either to the public market or to private equity, they get a second buyout. And so that way, because I know, most martial arts school owners have never gotten one time, let's say $500,000 or $1 million, right? They've probably made $1 million over the course of time, but having that one time, it's pretty powerful, right? Give somebody a check for $500,000 at one time. Depending on what they do with their money, that can set them up pretty well. So I plan on being their exit. So I can pick and choose the markets I want to be in strategically, and then help them get a second exit when we are able to do that together. That's my plan because I don't like the franchise space, right? Cool. I would love 500 schools, but I'm gonna let you go do that, and I'm gonna go cheer you on and support you. That's what and I hope 100% you pull that off, and I hope you become a super wealthy man. How long have you been out of the? Almost 3 years now. Yeah.
Okay. So what's funny is, I would say 2 years ago, I would not want a franchise because I had the same bad taste in my mouth that you had. Experience. And it took me 5 years to get over that.
To get over, yeah. Well, it's my thing is I know franchising works obviously because it's all over the place in our country. My thing about this in the martial arts space is I have other interests as well too inside the martial arts that I plan on doing that I want to do, and I think, like I said, a couple things that I see similar with us is like, you got one life, man. You got one opportunity, and I want to, like, if I can help you get to 500 schools in anything, if I can, whatever I can do to help you pull off your dream, it's going to fulfill my promise that God put me on earth to do, which is I'm here to help people see their best potential and help them get there and hold them accountable. The only way I can do that is I got to be a student of life, right? Like it, and that to me is what really martial arts represents. And that's why, like, I don't see I don't understand why people get so, I can't believe you want to go work with that person over there, or you want to talk to that person, or what, like. We're supposed to be inclusive as martial arts. It's supposed to be about self-development and all these things that we preach, then we don't practice them,
Yes.
There's bad players out there. There's definitely bad players that you want to stay away from and avoid, of course. Mm-hmm. But even the bad players, come on now, like, maybe they don't have the right mentor in their life. Maybe they need someone like you or me in their life, No, I'm excited for you, man. We're going a little longer than I plan on going, and I hope we get to do more of these in the future. I want to do some fun stuff. I know we have a little bit of delay with the internet here, so I'm just going to shoot some questions, and I'm just kind of curious. I want to know some things besides the martial arts. So first of all, pineapple and pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
I know I'm going to get some
that
hate.
was always. I don't know why, because it makes so much sense to me. If you weren't doing martial arts, what would you be doing?
Oh man, if I wasn't, I would probably be producing music, because actually I went to school for audio production when I was in my 20s, and I DJ'd for like 8 or 10 years until I was about pretty much from like 16 to 26. I was DJing in Chicago, and I started producing music for like bands and local hip hop artists, and would make EDM songs that I'd play when I DJ and stuff. So I would probably still be doing that if I wasn't in martial arts. I don't know if I'd want to be doing it, though,
I like that.
But
yeah, right. Hey, it could be a fun gig. Where is somewhere in the world you have not been yet that you intend to go to?
Ooh. I want to go to like Norway or Iceland or Greenland or any.
Okay.
We might have Greenland in America soon, so you never know. But,
Yeah, apparently it might happen soon.
Yeah,
right?
I want to go like somewhere where I can see the. Yes,
Yeah.
I want to see like the Northern Lights. I love like how much like all the mountains and greenery and those little like villages with the one pub in the middle. Like I want to go hang out there for a couple weeks.
All right, that'd be awesome. You got 3 boys. They grow up. They have their own family. You're retired. Are you a guy that's going to put your feet up somewhere on the beach, or are you going to go to the mountains, or are you going to work until your time here is up? How do you see yourself as the old Adam Kifer?
Yeah, I don't know if I can. Yeah, I don't know if I can ever fully retire, to be honest, because I love working. I think it's if I was doing something else, I don't know if I'd love it the same. But like, I'm just so passionate about the martial arts industry and the martial arts in general that like, I don't know what I'd be doing with it at that point, but I would definitely want to be doing something work related where I can still contribute to the earth and still make an impact on other people's lives at that point, even if it's just mentoring people or mentoring other entrepreneurs still. Yeah, just like I have just such a passion for giving to others and just doing my best to love on other people. So yeah, I don't think I'll be the guy. It'll be maybe a 2-week vacation on the beach when I retire, and then back to work.
I got you. So I got just about 3 more questions here. So let's say you build out this thing, 500 locations, you sell it, 9 figures, you're a wealthy man. Give me one kind of just dumb purchase that not the little stuff you should. What's a dumb purchase you would do if you were having generational wealth? Give me something that you would just
If I had a
go
bunch
for
of
fun,
money,
go do. Yeah. Give me the dumb purchase.
Dumb purchase. You know what? I not a car guy. Like, I think cars are dumb purchases to begin with, so I don't think I would buy one. Nothing against people that buy them. Like, I get it if it's your thing. Man, it would probably be like a yacht. I love being outside to begin with, and I love like staring at the stars. That's like there's something about the stars that like I don't know puts me at peace. But yeah, to just be out on the water, like just chilling at night, like yeah, I'll buy me a stupid yacht.
All right, I like that. Give me something that you hate in our industry right now that you just wish if you could snap your fingers and change. What's something? Just one thing, not 50, just one.
Victim mindset. It,
Okay.
it's the one thing that I have a hard time wrapping my head around when people have it, and that might be maybe a lack of empathy a bit. But when people
Okay.
are just like, "Poor me," it's my town, it's blah blah blah. Like, I wish the whole industry could. If everyone got over that in our industry, man, we'd be a much more successful industry.
I'm with you. Tell me, give me the opposite of that. Give me the one thing you love about our industry.
Man, that's a good question. There's a lot to choose from. I sort of love this like upcoming generation of martial arts school owners that are coming up because I see them learning from their instructors and learning from their parents if their parents own schools. Sort of like you and I, where I think they're seeing a lot of what not to do and way that they would make it better. And I just see like a really cool energy coming up with like this next generation of school owners.
Okay, awesome. I'll finish up with the last question. New Year's here. Something non-martial arts related. Adam Kifer, the end of the year is here. What's the big, scary goal that you're going to go after on a personal level?
Non-martial arts related. You know what, honestly, I don't think it's a scary goal, but it's like I just want to like continue to get closer to God. That's my number one personal priority this year is to like get that relationship as strong as possible because the one thing I always realize is that the closer that relationship gets, the better everything else falls in place in life.
Yeah.
And it just I don't know when you surrender it to that relationship, like the things that used to be a big deal aren't quite a big deal anymore.
Amen to that. Hey, man, I appreciate your time today. I'm excited to see what you're going to do. I love it, man.
Same.